10x your service design offering with Smapply. Take 20% off any order with This Is HCD 20 off. Let's superpower you and your design team's potential. Sign up at smapply.app. Enjoy the episode from your friends at Smapply, helping support This Is HCD podcast.
Hey everyone, Gerry here. Now I'm going to be the first to admit that I'm addicted to my phone, and I'm sure you probably are too. And I catch myself endlessly scrolling, convincing myself that it's work, but deep down I know it's not. It's a distraction, and I'm not alone in this struggle. And today's episode, I sit down with Joff Outlaw and Brad Marshall, authors of a fantastic book titled Busy Idiots, and I know you'd really love this too. In that conversation, we unpack our collective obsessions with screens, and we explore what phone addiction looks like, the practical steps to disconnect, and how to take back control in a world designed to keep us glued. But it isn't just about us. For long-time listeners of the show, they know I'm a father of two young children. And it's really about those young minds growing up in this environment. I mean, what happens if we don't intervene? What does the future look like for a generation born into screen dependence? Let's dive in. Delighted to have you on the podcast. We've got Joff Outlaw and Brad Marshall here, authors of this fantastic book. If you're watching it on YouTube, Busy Idiots. And I saw the book and I was like, I think he's calling me an idiot. And I definitely, I'm halfway through the book, and I'm absolutely loving it because I've been looking for something like this for quite some time. But maybe we'll start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you do. We'll go alphabetically. So we'll go to Brad first.
Okay, thanks, Gerry. So I'm a psychologist by trade. I work in a research lab at Macquarie University as well, and do the neuroscience thing. I have a clinic 2 days a week. That's primarily screens addiction clinic, which is why you see some of the screen addiction stuff sort of flirt through there. And I'm also the author of 3 different books. So this is my number 3 here. But this one, it was a little bit of a different slant there. So that's my background, but primarily these days speaking, training, workshops and the like. Amazing.
Joff?
Yeah, so very different. I've spent 20 years working in very large corporates, mainly in your field, Gerry, service design, CX, UX, strategy. And it might be a midlife crisis, but I decided, it might be the book's fault, but I recently decided to pack in the corporate life. And I'm now very excited to start a new venture. So I've become a managing partner at a company called MakerTech.
Cool.
Yeah, a little agency based out of Auckland, and we're going to try and scale the business in Australia. So that's very new. That's 3 weeks into that now. So pretty exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see it here. Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, this
we're actually redoing the website and the brand and everything. So be a bit kind about how it currently looks.
No,
I'm going to sort that out.
Well, I tell you, we'll have you back on to talk about that, and I'll actually have you back on as well, Brad, to go more into your own specific world of kind of neuro and understanding that. I worked out I was in Cochlear for years, so not too far from Macquarie University. So we do have a lot. So for folks listening, both Joff and Brad are in Sydney. I lived in Sydney, as many of you know, for a long time. And it's just great to hear about all the stories that you've been getting up to. But let's talk about the book, okay? Because we're here talking about Busy Idiots. Unfortunately, I did that survey at the start of the book where you scored people out. And I want to ask you, why did you make me feel so bad? Was that intentional? Because I maxed that. I was like, I think it was maximum 35. And I was definitely, if there was higher options, I would have been in the 40s.
Yeah, so those questions, Gerry, and just for those sort of listening along, that's a bit of a screener for your level of addiction to screens and whatnot.
Okay.
And so, some of those items are actually sort of validated items that we use in research, and I've sort of adapted them for the corporate worker. But really, it's obviously a bit of tongue in cheek there. The categories that we go through. It's supposed to just be a little bit of fun and have someone thinking a little bit about their tech use and whether it's in line with what they actually want out of life at work and at home. And that's really what it's designed to be there. So for people who haven't seen and haven't got a copy yet, there's questions in there about, does your partner or significant other bug you when you're on the phone and pulling your phone out in the middle of a meal, or are you, on it when you're supposed to be sleeping? That sort of stuff, when it's getting in the way of life.
Yeah, I wake up and I'm like, yes, I'm awake. I can get my phone now. That is the sort of the scenario that I'm in. I'm like, bing, internet time. So it's not good. And I've used all these different things on my phone. Like I'm on Android, which I know you kind of had a little bit of a dig by saying, oh, we're not sure what happens on Android when you try and get into, do not disturb mode. And I'm like, you should have tried, because it's a little bit like, but I am like really struggling with the whole kind of like technology piece. And I've actually tried to pull away from it, but it's still kind of luring me in, like, everything that I've tried, lots of things. So this book, do you think Busy Idiots would fall into the category of a self-help book?
Oh, we kind of tried to actively avoid that. We didn't want to position ourselves as wellness gurus, because we're not. No. We wanted to make it more around productivity and work, but the reality is that work and home life are so horribly intertwined these days that it probably does go in there. But particularly, the elements around technology and your time. I think there probably is an argument for that, but if we could,
we're not going to go down that road.
lane.
So you've heard it here, folks. It's not a self-help book. It's a productivity book, Yeah. But we were talking there before, my own self-addiction to the internet. And I think that's probably closer to how a lot of my own peers use the internet. Like especially if you're working for yourself, like I am, you become reliant on this. And it's very hard to juggle both worlds of, say, parenting, life, work. Within the book, you talk about lots of different things, and the auditing piece is something that I want to get into a little bit more. What advice do you give to people who are in the world that I'm in at the moment? How do you effectively audit your digital life? Like, because I read it and I was like, that sounds brilliant. And then I'm like, how would I do that in my own life? Like, what advice do you give to people like me to start an audit?
Yeah, so Gerry, I guess what we're talking about there is our sustainable tech blueprint, in which sustainable audit is one of the steps within that. So the step before that is sustainable knowing, where we take people through the persuasive design of technology, how it works, how it sucks you in, why it gets you spending more time online than you intend. So again, not fear-mongering, not trying to act like we all need to just be completely offline. There is fantastic things about technology. But we like to stick with the slogan here that you need to learn how to harvest technology and not let technology harvest us. So it's a tool that we need to use effectively. So
go ahead.
And so how do we audit that? One of the ways that we do it is through the questionnaire we were talking about before. But really, it's about people reflecting, and we hope that this book gives space, and we do this in our workshops too, for people to reflect on their own use. So let me share a little story with you from a workshop recently when I was in one of the big consulting firms earlier this year, and we went through the sustainable tech blueprint, and I had this woman come up to me afterwards, and she said to me, listen, one thing that I've really taken from you is that I was sitting there thinking about the sustainable audit and sustainable harvest, which is the trees. And I was thinking that, I keep taking my phone with me when I'm walking the dog on the beach. Beautiful beaches here, right? Walking the dog on the beach. And it was just intended, she said, just for music. That's all she really wanted it for. But before you knew it, she said, I'm looking back on it and now I realize I'm on Slack, I'm answering emails. There's all this stuff at 7 a.m. while I'm walking my dog on the beach that I wasn't intending on doing. So when we talk about the sustainable audit, that's a really good example for someone where we're not trying to come at it from a perspective where we're telling you exactly where your levels need to be. All I'm asking you to do is reflect on if it is where you want it to be. If you say that you genuinely want to be a cyborg and you want to be on technology for 19 hours a day, then hey, have at it. I'm not going to tell you how to live. So that's what the sustainable audit is about, and then our harvest trees as well after that.
Yeah. So looking at you've obviously researched this space and you're in this space, it's part of your life, Brad. I can hear it when you're talking. What are you seeing out there in terms of industry, in terms of how people are using technology? Is my case sort of reflective of the reality of the majority?
I mean, I think that when Joff and I decided to write this book,
yeah,
I was talking to Joff about, we were having a coffee and I was saying to him, hey, listen, mate, I'm seeing more and more, especially over COVID, parents come into my clinic on the North Shore of Sydney and, talking to me about how busy they were and how crazy this is and there's technology. I had this family come in and they were doing a Teams meeting while in my clinic, right? Literally, I'm doing a consultation and they're on a Teams call saying, don't worry, hang on a second, listen, I've got you muted and I've got the camera off, but I've just got to be in this meeting. And I remember having a coffee with Joff and saying, hey, man, what's going on with technology in the corporate world? Because he is in these big corporates. Yeah. And Joff, you explained to me that it was much bigger than that, right? This is about busyness in general. So, I mean, what was your take on it at the time, Joff, when I brought you that?
Yeah, I felt like if we just wrote a book about putting down your phone, then adults might kind of repel that a little bit. Like, don't tell me what to do with my phone, particularly those addicted to them. And really, it's I'm in the same industry as you, Gerry, right? And there's lots of, I use technology every day. I have to. I've got, my team's predominantly in Auckland, right? So I'm online all the time. But it's more the kind of behavioural stuff in the corporate and the culture of, well, let's have a meeting. Yeah. Let's just use instant messaging without any rules whatsoever. Let's just start pinging off messages. And there's a really interesting, actually, a thought experiment that a former colleague said. He said, I wish we could set limits on the number of emails that you can send a day. He's like, do you think we'd be more productive for it? And I was like, I'd love to do that because I think we would. Yeah. I think it's just so easy just to disturb each other constantly. And then you hate the technology, but the technology is just that enabler and it's very good as an enabler to kind of put you into a busy trap, but it comes down to a lot to corporate culture. Yeah.
On the corporate side of things, do you think a lot of this boils down to trust from the corporate world of like being visible online and being kind of busy shows that you're actually providing worth? How much of that is wrapped up in the need for showing that you're online and you're doing these things? Like, because there's proof there that we've seen it, like being disconnected and allowing yourself to reflect and rebuild and recharge. There's huge benefits to that. What are your thoughts?
That's a great question. I mean, the whole premise of the book, really, the mission of the book, if we jump to the conclusion, is we hate this idea that we're always supposed to be busy. So, when you have a meeting, how does it normally start? You talk about the weather and then you go, you busy? Oh yeah, really busy. Yeah, flat out. You? Oh yeah, really, really busy. And it's like, how sad that that's the response that we think we should give. Yeah. And you have to actively make sure you don't do it. So when someone says, how's things? It's really hard not to write busy and just to write, yeah, I'm fine, actually. I've got everything under control and I'm having a good time.
And then it's
so the trust thing. Yeah, the trust thing. I think we all kind of like sometimes feel like we lack permission to be adults and live our own lives when we're at work. It's like we become this, this kind of version of ourselves where it's like, yes, absolutely, no problem, have a good day, and yeah, of course I'm busy, and it's not really sustainable. Like if you work in that culture for too long, you generally end up either burnt out or hating yourself, and you have to leave.
It's true. It's true. Like I'm actually working on a pretty big project for a local government here in Ireland, and even going right back to when you do your responses for the proposals and all of those different pieces, usually you quantify the value of the work to the unit of a day and the time. So there's a compression already happening from the proposal stage. Mm. But when I won the tender, I basically said to them, saying, I want to work to your cadence, which was the first time I'd ever really approached a client saying that, saying, as in like my day, I'm happy to split it out and treat it more like a consultancy in terms of the hour. So I'm only really charging you for the 7.5 hours a day. It could be spread over 3 days. The value that I'm noticing that gives me is I control the work, and it's better value for them because I'm not burning time when I'm sitting there having a coffee. But it also means that we get a greater outcome. And not every client, if you're working for one of the big four, the big consultancies, and you're going out there, like that unit of the day is their profitability. So how likely is it, if you're working in one of those big four consultancies, that you can say, actually, you know what, I'm going to take a step back? This is not going to, it's probably unlikely. Isn't that right? So it goes back to the culture of remaining busy.
Those big consultancies, billability or utilization, they drive you on that, right? So, you need to be 80% billable. Otherwise, we're going to have a conversation, and you've got to fill a timesheet in every week. So it's systemically broken from that starting point where, as long as you're busy, you've got a job, right?
Yeah. That's true.
And obviously, if you do good work, then you're more likely to get promoted. But just being billable is enough sometimes. But that leads to quite a disengaged workforce sometimes, and not the best outcomes. I mean, even if you do a fixed cost project, what you've done there is quite clever, Gerry. But even if you do a fixed cost project, the client breaks it down and goes, okay, well, it's over this amount of time, and therefore it's this cost, so your day rate's this, and they bring it back down to that. So yeah, it's a problem. I mean, I'm very pleased to say that, in the agency we run now, we don't do timesheets, because we're smaller and we're able just to focus on the outcomes. But it's almost like you get to a scale and you go, right, this is too hard to manage, so let's put everyone into a box of 8 hours a day minimum.
Yeah.
And I know, it's probably four, sorry, Gerry, but I was just going to add, beyond the big four there, I think what we also just need to recognise, and what Joff and I were trying to get to in the book as well, knowing that we're going to kind of ruin the ending a little bit for you here, Gerry, but one of the key elements that we're trying to get across here is that we would love to see a world where busyness isn't promoted as this amazing quality that everyone has to be doing all the time. So if someone can achieve something in just 2 or 3 hours, this is kind of what you were talking about before, right? Why should they be disadvantaged? Why should they have to hide that? Why do they have to tell their boss that they're constantly busy to justify their position? They shouldn't feel as though they're at risk of losing their job or being given more work or made retrenched because they're not saying that they're madlessly busy. And so it's a really unhealthy culture in many departments or businesses that you find here, the busy culture. And that's what we're trying to attack here.
Yeah. I mean, one of my good friends in Ireland, he's set up his own creative agency, and he's able to define his impact. And I know we're going left field here of the topic of busy idiots, but he's able to define his impact on what he can generate and what the ROI is. So every engagement that he has, he's able to say, well, I've done this and I'm charging this, and this is what you can expect to get back. And he says, like, once it's written down at that, he can really show that his value is there, and it's always presenting every single day. I don't know how that translates into a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. It'd be pretty crazy to be there every single day. Just to be clear, today I'm going to be getting paid $1,000, and of that, you'd go absolutely spare having to do it every single day.
There'd be a second book for that, I think.
Busy idiots who bill by the day. But generally speaking, I love what you're talking about here. But going back to the busyness thing, and I guess your sort of value proposition, if you will, for the book is really trying to be more productive and being less reliant on screens. And many people listening to this will understand that technology companies out there crave for your attention. Attention equals money. Okay. So we're all pretty clued into that piece. The bits that I'm really interested in from both of your perspectives, because you've got two wonderful kind of perspectives on the same problem, is what mechanics do you see as the pieces that work to get people more removed from their devices?
Yeah. I mean, look, there's obviously multiple ones here. One of the biggest ones that we found and that I saw when I was doing the research, especially for this book, was around real world social connection.
Yeah.
If people feel real world social connection in their workplace, and again, I'm not sitting here saying you've got to be best mates with everyone at work, but real world social connection is a key part here. And it's not just a key part in our relationships, it's also a key part to oxytocin. And so we know through the whole COVID experiment here that there's only so much oxytocin that you get, which is a feel-good chemical, the social feel-good chemical, from doing video stuff like this. being there face to face and being in physical proximity is really the driver of oxytocin. And so for me, it's about, there's a flip side here of, yes, you can have people limit their tech use, but you have to replace that with real world activities and stuff as well. So that's not me saying that work from home companies can't work or hybrid companies can't work. They can, but they've just got to be very meaningful about how they achieve that within their teams to get that real world connection as well. And so, as you said, this is a productivity book, because the way that we see it is there's an easy link there. If you have happier staff that aren't lonely and that are more socially connected, they are going to be more productive.
Yeah. Can I play a little bit of kind of futuristic kind of perspectives here on what this looks like? Imagine everyone maintains the status quo that we currently have at the moment, where I'd say majority of my peers and people listening, you know, we use smartphones, we use internet, we're on Zoom calls, all of those different things. If we maintain this for the next 15, 20 years, 30 years, what does it look like in both your perspectives? Here's an opportunity to paint a picture for us.
Oh, God.
Joff's looking for the blacks, and he's looking for the paintbrushes and the greys.
I'm trying not to go into kind of a binary way of thinking, because that's the easiest thing to do, right? You go, do we go kind of dystopia or utopia here? Like,
but what does it look like in terms of the impacts on our health, like on our well-being and all of those aspects? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I don't. I don't imagine that's a positive society if we continue to be as addicted to screens as. I mean, I've got young children, and it really scares the life out of me, because, you know, I was lucky enough to be brought up without screens, and you know, if I was bored, I'd say, "My dad, I'm bored," and he'd say, "No, you're not bored. You just lack imagination," and then you kind of figure something out, right? Whereas, you know, my son's watching TV. Like, I can't. There could be a fire all around him, and he's just completely locked in.
Yeah,
you know, whatever's happening, and Brad knows much more about this than I do, but you know, the tech companies are grabbing our attention like never before. So, you know, there's as a father, I'm most concerned. I think once we look at productivity in the workplace, maybe in response to your previous question, I think it comes down to like really thinking deeply on a human level what you want to do with your day. Like, if you don't wake up and go, I'm really excited to do X, then you're just gonna jump into your emails and then jump on your phone and send some Slack messages, and you lose yourself in the technology, and then it's lunchtime and you feel terrible, and then it's the end of the day and you go, what have I done? Right. So and obviously it wouldn't be a podcast these days about mentioning AI, right? So, you know, who knows if that's going to actually relieve of some of this burden and help us, or whether it's going to, you know, be used in malicious ways to steal even more of our attention. But I kind of most interested in the work that Brad's doing here to help the kids. I think that's the most important thing. Well, it's too late for us.
I think Joff owes me a beer here, because I'm not sure if you're aware up in Europe there, but our Prime Minister here has just introduced legislation to ban social media for under 16s. And I was giving evidence at the Australian Parliament House 2 months ago on that. So I'm fairly sort of in the know of how all that's working. And in fact, a lot of my research from my research lab was, informed that decision. So there are certainly impacts. If we just, to answer your question here, what does it look like in 20 years' time? I can tell you that in 20 years' time, my fear would be that for a developing brain, if we just look at sort of teenagers and young adults, there is a lot of lost connection, a lot of lost social skills, a lot of lost ability to read social cues, to read all sorts of different stuff the more we do things via video. If we bring this back to business, what that means for business, and we're already starting to see this, right? So when Joff and I speak at companies, you'll get the new grads, the cadets, all these sorts of people, you know, the emerging leaders that already struggle with some of this, but I think that's just going to be accentuated. So that's kind of what we used to call the soft skills, the ability to communicate, the ability to read the room, the ability to respond to emotion. This is the stuff that we're seeing is being lost on a neurological level, right? And so if we fast forward 20 years, if we're not mindful about how to keep that oxytocin and that real world connection in the workplace, and again, part of that is in Busy Idiots having a sustainable tech plan there and being able to limit your own usage at home and work, but then being able to have that real connection as well. Because what I worry about is, Elon Musk, I heard him say the other day that in 20 years, every house is going to have a robot in it. I'm not sure what they're going to be doing, but that guy, he seems to be able to get stuff done. So the world will be very different in 20 years. And I worry that we are going to fall further down this echo chamber where we become less and less tolerant of each other. And that makes work, we see this in elections, right? Just this complete polar opposite, because we only get fed what we believe or the polar opposite of that, and it becomes very difficult in the middle. So, of course, that's a challenge for companies and workplaces, because you end up with this workforce where you've essentially got 50% on this side and this side, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that no one can talk about.
And it's more than that. It's you're losing the ability to think critically, right?
Right.
So for some reason, I did a degree in history at university, and the main thing that history teaches you is to think about both sides and then come to a balanced understanding. It's really hard to do that if you're only ever seeing one side of everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely. History is a fantastic direction, I guess, to go. And there's lots that you can learn from that, I imagine, Joff. But just going back to that point there that you made a second ago, Brad, as regards Anthony Albanese's mentioning, I don't know if it's gone through policy yet, is it? Has it been informed?
It hit the Senate. It hit the Senate yesterday, and we had a Senate inquiry and testimonies and whatnot. It'll go through. It's got the support of both parties.
So January the 1st or something will go through, will it be?
It won't come into effect for 12 months because basically they're saying to the social media companies that you need to implement the age verification within, here's your task, go away and do it.
Yeah, you've got 12 months. ID verification, passports.
No, so there won't be any ID. There won't be any ID verification.
How will they do it?
Yeah, so this is interesting. I was speaking to the member for Flinders. Her name is Zoe McKenzie. She's part of the Liberal Party, and she was on the Joint Select Committee last night. We did a sort of Instagram live about this, ironically, on Instagram. It's hilarious. And she was explaining that if you take, for example, TikTok, they booted something like 20 million, don't quote me on that, you can fact check me, people last year off their platform for being under 13, right? 1 million of them were Australian accounts. Now, they never had any age verification for that. They have the ability within the algorithms to know who is under 13. So, for example, this tendon doesn't actually fully develop until you're age 20. So the way that you hold a phone dictates how old you are. And so that's just one of the biometrics that they can use to measure who is under certain ages and who is over. Point is, they have the ability to do it, and the Australian government are telling them you've got 12 months.
Brad, you're now invited to dinner parties for the extension of your life at my house. Okay, because you make Joff work to do. Okay, just saying you're there, but work to do. But Brad, that's a quote that I'm going to be using. So you're telling me that the bone between the thumb and that forefinger. So the way I can hold my phone, pretty much like a Viking, like a caveman, like the whole thing in one big lump, big hands on me, So they're going to be using that detection to determine who's under 16. Is that what you're saying? That the responsibility falls into the tech company to determine if they're underage, and if so, kick them out?
Yeah, correct. The responsibility, how they do it is sort of up to them, and I don't imagine, but they need to make reasonable attempts to do that, and that's what they're steering for here. So again, and the idea here is that this is about protecting those key qualities that we talked about, that connection and the ability to be able to socialize and have those soft skills. And be able to see other people's point of view, because as Joff said, it's really important to be able to see both sides here. And all of that is important for the future of work in general. If we have a generation of kids that then sort of come into their 20s and they are the up and coming leaders of any big organization, it's going to be difficult if they're lacking in these skills. And we're already starting to see a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think so. So, like, I guess this is really important for people who are in service design. I keep on going back to it. But even as you're forming teams and you're trying to think about what it looks like in 2, 5, 10, 15 years, if these people are being so drained and addicted to screen-based activities, it's going to shift how operations work within businesses. The attention spans are going to be less, the increased kind of desire to get stuff done quickly.
What's going to happen to empathy?
Joff, you put me in a bad mood for the day. Like,
I'm sorry.
I don't know if we can continue the podcast. I'm only joking.
Well, let's just on that train of thought though, because and then we should probably get a bit more optimistic because it's late.
No, I like things to
This is getting real kind of film noir style, isn't it? But going back. So service design. So main skill in one of the main skills in service design, empathy, right? Research. So if you get, where the service designer is going to come from if everyone's just, addicted to screens and, don't have those social skills and don't have that, investigative nature. Yeah. Really, really hard to kind of really understand, how we design human services without that skill. So, I mean, that's just our industry, right? There's many others that'll be impacted.
It's funny. There's a lot of things going on in my head when you're talking here, which is a good sign, by the way, for a good podcast. But, we're in the middle of a general election. General election happens in Ireland on Friday. And I saw overnight somebody has created an AI candidate and put it up on some of the posters in the city centre, like where there's an AI generated picture. His name's Aiden something, and he's in a tie. Like, it's obviously an AI generated avatar. And, vote for AI, like, we're autonomous and we'll get the stuff done, like, and the comments underneath this thing was, I'd vote for him. Oh, okay, wow. I'd vote for him. He'll take instructions, and I'm like, I know, I guarantee, if that was actually a serious thing, people would definitely. There's this whole kind of the erosion of trust in kind of established, organizations. We're at that point in society. You can see what's happening in America, Middle East, everywhere. There's things shifting. And, it's so easy to lean into the technology side of things. So when you're having those conversations, you're doing presentations and you're doing workshops with these organizations, you must see it, feel it, and smell it in the room that there's this huge desire to engage more with technology. So they know the problems are there, but yet they're still doing it.
Yeah.
What do you say?
So true. It's so true.
So the model is we have sort of 3 components here, and you'll see the book follow a similar format. So it's manage your tech, which is what we've been talking about. And the second part is manage your time and productivity, which looks at the individual, how they're working with their boss, those sorts of things, and just how they manage their own productivity. But then probably the most important part for me anyway is manage your teams. And that's where Joff and I really go into, again, not just in the book, but in workshops as well. It's our opportunity to get the communication flowing again. How do they want to communicate? How are they going to do that? We model those soft skills in there. We also just get that physical oxytocin going. It's one of my favorite parts there. It's just some old school stuff to an element of it. Yeah. Joff, do you want to elaborate on manage our teams a bit more?
Yeah. Yeah, which is the latter part of the book, and that's in.
Yeah, it's alliterative, right? So tech, time, and then team, and but the team part, the soft stuff's always the hardest, right? So, when you do a kick-off meeting for a new project, I don't understand why kick-off meetings are so dull. Like, it's the most important meeting, right? You're starting the project, and it's like, right, let's look at the project plan, scope, deliverables, risk log, if you're really lucky, and everyone's like, oh God, can't wait to get started, and then. Sometimes, particularly if you work in a big corporate, you might know nothing about the people you're working with. You might not even know their surname. You've just been thrown in a room. And then when the going gets tough on the project, you wonder why you can't quickly resolve it and work through it. So we've created a template called a team pact. And I know team charters became really popular for a little while. I was never a huge fan. I feel like team charters were a little bit, added some value because they kind of got that team spirit going, but you tended to come up with quite vacuous goals, and then you give a team name and you put it on some t-shirts, and it's like, good, team Superman will deliver out of this world. And it's like, I think a good team pact, you've got to consider, the rational stuff, which is, well, what are we going to do? A key question is who's responsible for what and who's in charge. Now, nobody ever likes talking about this. It's quite hard to be like, well, I'm the project lead. So if I say something and I say, this is what we're doing, you can disagree, but we'll have to commit. I know many times in my career, quite senior people come up to me and say, I've asked so-and-so to do something and he won't do it. And, he's doing something else and we're falling behind. And I said, well, have you told him you're the project lead? And she's like, I couldn't possibly say that. So in the team pack, we talk about the rational stuff, which is who's accountable for doing what. We talk then about the heart, the middle bit, which is what do you believe? What are the goals? And the goals need to be prioritized because you can't have 5 priorities of all equal because you'll never agree a way forward. Yeah. And then the finals and the body, what work are you going to do? So if you kind of take some time away from the boring project kickoff and do it that way, then you all start understanding, well, who's responsible for what and how we're going to do it. And then the final thing is like, for God's sake, have some fun on the company clock, right? Like work doesn't have to be miserable. So
I know,
and don't do a PowerPoint presentation during it. Like that's the thing. You go it's like, well, we'll go to the pub, but first let's go through. It's not, no, just go and find out about each other and have some fun. Like, why not?
On that point, Joff, it's a really good point because I'm a big believer in no screens for meetings. I much prefer rethinking about workshops as opposed to meetings. And I did a presentation recently, and it was they called it a presentation, and it was replaying the findings of research. And it says, "Do you need your laptop?" And I go, "I didn't bring my laptop." And I was like, "I'm just going to use the wall, that's all the information we need for this." And it's not like, oh, Gerry's great or that kind of stuff. But I think the whole kind of organizations can sometimes just expect the certain format of these kind of things. Like, you need a device to do the playback. You need a PowerPoint to do these things.
It's actually it's an interesting point because, with what we're talking about with the addiction to screens.
Yeah.
Like I remember doing kind of, when you do a morning stand up, and, I would never mention any names, but I remember some people found it so hard. They found it so hard just for 10 minutes to kind of stay focused. And they'd be like, oh, sorry, who hasn't gone? It's like, it's a 10-minute meeting. Stay with me. But you just know they're kind of in the background, just all over the shop getting distracted. So I'm with you on that one. I think there's something really nice about going into meetings without screens, because if someone does bring a screen, and I've had that before where you're presenting and someone pulls out the laptop or the phone.
That's it.
Now, they might be taking notes, but it's really hard not to imagine that they're just distracted. And then it's just not a nice feeling. It's like, can we just be together for this meeting, please?
And we've seen this, Joff, haven't we? In team packed workshops, Gerry, we'll quite often challenge teams to chuck their phone, laptops, everything else in the middle of the table. We'll chuck it in a bowl. First person that touches that during the day has to buy lunch, right? It's one of those old school. And you see, there's some people around the table and around the room that are very comfortable with it, and there's others that are just sort of, there's lights flashing up on these phones, and they're sort of looking, they're trying to figure out if it's their phone or they're really uncomfortable.
Serious withdrawal symptoms,
Yeah. There's, I'm not just saying this because I'm on the call to you, but it's a really important read. And if you sort of identify with anything that we're speaking with here, there's very few pieces of literature that are focused exactly on what we're talking about here. So I'd really encourage you to get the book. You could charge a lot more for this book as a disclaimer, by the way, just as a piece, because we did do a giveaway in the private community the other day, and Kelly, who's working with me, ordered the book for the person who won it in the community. And I was like, I thought the book would be more expensive. You could have charged $10 for this thing, because you've broken it down really nicely. You've designed it really nicely. And I love the fact that you've got your recaps at the end, which plays into the kind of the shift that we're talking about here in terms of surmising exactly what we covered for people who've got low levels of attention. Right. Yeah. And I think that's a really a nice indication. It's that's a really nice approach for taking these things. So depending on where you're at in your journey of trying to strip things back, you can go back and look at those different pieces, which I don't know who was involved with that design decision. Yeah. Oh, look at Joff shrugging. I'm not saying it was me, but the shoulders went up.
Well, if I didn't get the design right after spending so long in design, then so it's all I'm bringing to the table, really, you know.
Yeah, pretty much. He's shrugging here. It's just like, if you're on YouTube, you can see his expression. Like, I'm not going to say it was Joff.
Yeah, edit that
Maybe it was Brad.
out. I've lost all humility, so yeah, let's get that out.
I know, absolutely. So let's talk about where you're going to go with this next, because you've shifted to a new role. Joff, you're Maker Tech, is it? Maker Tech?
Yeah, that's right.
And Brad, you're still up in the Northern Beaches, private consultancy, correct? That's your opportunity.
Yeah, I jump around still. I've got the clinic 2 days and research, but mainly we're doing speaking. Yeah, these days.
Okay, so that whole kind of world of helping organizations, holding their hand through this piece, is something that you're available to be engaged with. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's our main piece these days. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is like a calling card. The book is like a calling card. You know, it's a great read. It's a great, very, very helpful. But if you want to get deeper expertise on this, there is a place where people can go. And is it your LinkedIn's or what?
Yeah,
is it like?
LinkedIn's always a good place to. We're very active on LinkedIn at the moment.
You are very active.
Yeah, I apologise for that.
But also on busyidiots.net.
Yeah, that's right.
Busyidiots.net. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I want to thank you, right, for both taking the time and the energy. You identified a really nice kind of niche organically of this topic. And I really encourage anyone listening to the podcast. I'm not on any retainer. I don't get any commission for this. But it is a really important read if you want to avoid that scenario of happening in the next 20 years of, perpetually doom scrolling 5 years or 10 years of your life away by looking at cat gifs. By all means, knock yourselves out, but I don't. So I'm going to put a link to the book in the show notes. And I'm probably going to mention this a lot more over the next couple of months as I work my way through. I'm halfway through the book. And as I said, like I'm going to play back how I'm finding stripping back my digital life a lot more on the podcast. So thank you so much for giving me your time and energy and working through their technical difficulties today, folks. I'd love to have you back on individually so we can go into each depths and talk about it because you're both remarkable practitioners. So I'll put a link to both of your LinkedIn's into the show notes in the description on YouTube, and a link to, what was it? busydiots.net?
busydiots.net. Awesome, Gerry. Yeah. Thank you.
That's a good one. Listen, thank you so much for your time today, folks.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you, Gerry.
Speak soon.